Welcome to another edition of Unplug from Worldly Thinking. In this week's episode, we are going to discuss freedom from anger. We're also going to get in and touch a little bit about some of the myths of emotions and some of the facts of emotions in general, as well as the myths and facts about anger, how to manage anger so it never has to occur. And we got some really cool stuff. With me, as always, is my brother and friend Patrick. How's it going, buddy?
Going well, man. Excited to kind of start breaking down what I'd call our workshop section of this series because we're going to start getting into like anger, depression, anxiety, like just the real up to this point we've done like broad topics and now
Right.
we're going to do more targeted things.
Yeah, getting into the specifics of emotion because not everybody deals with the same things, and a lot of our one-on-ones are very individualized and targeted and for their individual things that they're dealing with. And we
Yeah.
figure if we can get just some basic topics like this, if people don't have time to connect with us, talk with us, they can at least have these as some foundational principles before, hey, at least it's better than not having these foundational teachings. And
Sure.
then they can, if they need to, have further conversations with us, one-on-ones, group chats with us. Got a lot of cool and exciting things coming. We've had some great live chats in the past couple weeks where we've had several people on a Zoom stream or on a Discord stream and just really having a good time sharing ideas and sharing concepts and being authentic people.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun like just some having some just late night shooting the shit conversations and it's been cool seeing I guess both of us stepping back and just letting kind of the people that are coming in discuss their ideas amongst themselves and just letting them talk and just sitting back and enjoying it. And,
Right.
if we have something to say along the way, we pipe up and just overall good hanging out, talking
Yeah.
about our ideas.
It's like joining, connections that we've made through all these different communities that we've subjected ourselves to or integrated ourselves with, and kind of bringing people that would have never met or never even conversed together that are just genuine people and
Yeah.
authentic people sharing a unique worldview.
Yeah. No, I think that's the key word that they're genuine. They're not putting on a mask. They're not trying to be something other than they are. And, those are the people we always are going to be connecting with is just being yourself, right, wrong, or indifferent. I really value we don't like and the cool thing about the group is none of us agree on exactly everything, but we're still able to have conversations with vastly different ideas in a civil manner. And
Yep,
that can happen with genuine people.
absolutely. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here and discussing the myths about emotions. Number one, I can't control how I feel emotionally, but I can control how I react to my emotions. This is a myth because if you change the way that you think, perceive, understand both yourself and the world around you, understand why emotions are useful, when they're valuable, when they're not valuable, you certainly can get to a point to where you don't feel like you used to in a specific situation, in a
Right.
specific moment in time, in a specific interaction with another. The things that you believe you're being triggered into, like, oh, I'm just always going to feel this when person Y does X or certain situation B happens. The reality is, it's all the way that you think, the way that you reason, your beliefs, your perceptions, and your judgments about instances or circumstances or a person that generates the emotions. So you can not necessarily control how you feel, but you can certainly manage your emotions in a healthier way.
Right.
Number two, women are more emotional than men. No,
Eh.
again, not true. The differences are women can be more susceptible to certain types of emotions during their monthly cycle. There's a time in their month when they're more sensitive to being sad. There's a time in their month where they're more susceptible to being irritable or angry. There's a time in their month where they're more susceptible to being aroused or horny. That's just part of their hormone shifts as they go through their monthly cycle. But as far as them being more emotional men, not true. Men, especially in Western society, or even if you look into the Far East, in Asian countries, they mask their emotions. They
Mm.
may not reveal their emotions. They may even repress their emotions, but they are not less emotional than women. They just mask it better or hide it better. So, again, this is a myth. People make you feel a certain way. Like, oh, you pissed me off, Patrick. You hurt my feelings. You just really made me. You really embarrassed me in that moment in front of our friends. You made me feel
Right.
ashamed. And it's, again, human beings largely have been taught that other people are responsible for how you feel. And that's just not the truth. The truth is you allow others to make you feel a certain way based on your perceptions, judgments, viewpoints, and thoughts that generate the emotions. So, again, we'll get into these things in more detail when we're talking about how to manage them in healthy ways.
Right. We've talked about this whole series about people don't make you feel a certain way. You make yourself feel a certain way, in a sense, based on what we've already said, perceptions, beliefs, and many other things we've talked about up to this point.
Yep. Next one, I'm always going to feel this way. So, again, when people are used to habitually feeling anxious or depressed
Mm,
or angry or embarrassed or worried, they believe that that's just the way it is. That's just who they are and that it's always going to be this way. Again, it's not the truth, it's just a myth. Venting emotions helps you get them out so you feel better. And you've seen these like break rooms or, these scream rooms that they have. Like the break
mm,
rooms, you can go in there and break a bunch of stuff. They have all these dishes or all these
right.
TVs, or you go in there with a bat and you beat the hell out of everything, and that this is going to somehow help get a release. Or you go to the gym and you punch a heavy bag, and that's going to help you get your anger out. The truth is, it's teaching you how to funnel and focus that anger. So
Right.
again, it reinforces the cortisol. It reinforces the memories. It reinforces the episodes in your mind. They do not help get them off your chest. And I'm not talking about repression, because we do not ever validate or support repressing your emotions. That is definitely an unhealthy way to cope with
Yeah,
emotions.
that's the opposite of the spectrum, I guess. It
Yeah,
just
vending
because
them,
then
not
because then
healthy.
you ultimately you do blow up, or other negative consequences can happen from stuffing all that stuff down.
Yeah, venting them is not healthy, and repressing them is not healthy. There is something in the middle. Next, leave your emotions at the door. You often hear this, especially in the workplace. Hey,
Hmm.
we're about to have a group meeting. Check your emotions at the door. When you arrive at work, leave your emotions at the door. Well, unless you can take your head off and set it at the door as you walk through, you're not going to leave your emotions at the door. Your emotions are a part of your inner being, your inner determinants that dictate your behaviors, actions, choices, decisions. They're part of who you are, and they generate themselves based on your perception and understanding of the world. We'll get into those in more detail in a second. Showing or having intense emotions is a sign of weakness. And again, here in Western society, it's generally like men are not. It's not okay for men to be scared, and it's not okay for men to sit there and be sad. So men will often not show those things. Don't want to cry in front of somebody. Don't want to show that they're afraid or worried, because then that would show that I'm weak or there's some sense of weakness about me. Not true. Not true. It's okay to feel sad and hurt. It's okay to feel worried or afraid. That's not a bad thing. I think logically, not emotionally. And I can't remember how many people think they're this way, both men and women. I think logically, I don't think emotionally. Bullshit. You're a human being. You feel emotions. You may repress your emotions. You may not display your emotions or express them, but you certainly feel emotions, regardless of this declaration that you're trying to make somebody think that, oh, you're so much more wise because you don't have emotions. No, you're emotional, just like everybody else.
Right.
Anger or a temper is inherited from our family line or ancestors. You'll hear oftentimes with, if you're Irish, that Irish temper or Italian temper. That's the Italian temper in me, or that German temper. Everybody's got this ancestral temper, or they'll tie it to their family line. Like, ooh, I get that from my dad's side of the family. Oh, I get this anger from my mom's side of the family. Now, while you may be picking up things through mirror neurons and behavioral responses, watching people doing what they do and mimicking behavior, it's not genetic. You're not passing down the anger genome. I know I'm talking on my ass with biology, but You know what I mean? All right, moving on to the next slide. Let's talk about the truth about emotions. Number one, emotions are neither good nor bad. So people can't look into emotions as positive or negative in a way. It's more so, are they serving you well and in the way that they're meant to? Because every emotion we have the potentiality to feel can have value given a certain circumstance. The only thing
Right.
is, you might not understand what the right circumstances are or the beneficial circumstances to feel said emotions. And we'll get into that more details as we go through this list. Emotions are a part of our inner determinants that dictate our responses. And the responses, again, are our actions, behaviors, choices, decisions, and expressions. Your emotions will dictate how you choose and decide. It'll affect how you act and behave, and they will have an effect on how you express yourself. Third one, emotions are a symptom of our understanding, perception, judgment, and physiological response to the world we live in. And again, there's key indicators, so that when you feel emotions, it's kind of putting yourself in a state of feeling, which can generate a state of being for a particular moment for either survival or pleasure or thriving or interacting, relationing, having relationship with one another. So emotions are all part of our humanity. It's one of the things that makes us very unique as a species here on Earth.
Right. And we talked about this last week of like, we won't get into this a little bit, but don't make yourself your symptom. We talked about escapes and addictions is um, people often attach I'm just an angry guy or I'm just a on the we in the previous side you said I don't think emotionally, I think logically. Well, there's
Mm,
also people who are just I'm a very emotional person.
sure, sure.
It's
I
another
wear my emotions on
justification.
my sleeve.
Yeah, and it's like, no, it's just that's how you've learned to justify around what you are. So, again, going back to kind of what we said last week is like, don't make yourself your symptom. Just realize that it's a symptom of something going on inside of you to guide you to a better way of doing things.
Sure, absolutely. As emotions intensify, our ability to think and reason declines. So we know in psychology that as the midbrain, through your amygdala, your hippocampus, your thalamus, as those emotions start to intensify in the midbrain, it blocks access off to your prefrontal cortex where your thinking and reasoning, quote, logic is. So as emotions intensify, no matter if they're secondary or tertiary emotions, your ability to think and reason will decline. Emotions up, thinking and reasoning on decline. Emotions start to calm down, the ability to think and reason goes back up. So, again, just understand that you allowing your emotions to intensify, because either you don't know how to or you just allow it to be there for whatever reason, you're impairing your ability to think and reason in that moment. Again, we've always said, and I'll get into it in the next one, I think it's the next one down. Intense emotions are only useful in life threatening situations. So, again, this is a truth. So, when you're feeling anxiety and depression, anger, maybe shame or guilt, those intense emotions would serve you well in life threatening situations only. And I'm not going to go into all details on this because I'm going to Patrick and I are going to do this entire teaching on emotion management later after we get through these individual specific ones. But again, as intense emotions are only useful in life threatening situations, then if you're feeling those things in a non life threatening moment, you have to realize that that emotion is not serving you well and it's
Mm,
not healthy for you in that moment.
right.
Worldly people will validate, justify, or normalize intense emotions when they have an inability to manage them in non life threatening situations. So people like to normalize, they like to justify, they like to validate why they're feeling these intense emotions, that they are indeed normal, and that they are justified in their own viewpoint. Because otherwise, they might have to feel bad about them, and that's not good either. And lastly, worldly people will blame others or place responsibility on external stimuli for why they feel intense emotions in non life threatening situations. So it's not me, it's external thing, either situation, experience, or interaction with another person, or what they did or said, didn't do or didn't say that's made me feel this way. They're responsible for my anger. They're responsible for my anxiety. They're responsible for my depression. They're responsible for me feeling shame or embarrassment or guilt. And again,
Right.
it's not the truth. The truth is your judgments, perceptions, viewpoints of external things is what generates the emotion. And those things are learned. It's been programmed into you when you were a small child, or you picked them up through observation in your mirror neurons, programmed into you further in your childhood, your adolescence, late teenagehood, and early adulthood. So again, yeah, certainly you got programmed by other people, but the one specific person in the one specific moment eliciting a response in you is you allowing it to be there because of how you perceive, judge, and view the situation. So let's get specifically into anger, and we're going to go ahead and define it. Anger is an intense inner feeling of hostility or aggression towards someone or something that is perceived to be provoking, threatening, disgusting, unfair, unjust, or hurtful. Anger is a secondary emotion that generally escalates from the primary feelings of sadness, fear, or disgust. And so, again, I guess we can touch a little bit on you have five primary emotions: pleasure,
Mm.
surprise, fear, sadness, or disgust. Those five emotions, pleasure, surprise, fear, sadness, and disgust, are your least intense emotions that are generally part of your day to day observation and functioning, even in non life threatening situations. However, when you feel these emotions, sometimes they quickly escalate because of how you view those feelings, perceive even those feelings, or whether you like or don't like those sense of feelings. And they can get into secondary emotions. So anger can result from being sad or hurt, or being sad or hurt over something that's happened to somebody else, fear or worry, and it can also escalate from disgust, which you're just disgusted by somebody else's behavior, actions, choices, and decisions. So let's talk about normalizing anger. So this is a little clip from Marvel's Thor Ragnarok, and the Hulk and Thor had just had a big fight, and they're just sitting around chit chatting, and Thor says, "We're the same, you and I. We're just a couple of hot-headed fools." So again, it's normalizing that that's just the way we are. We're just hot-headed. We're just short-tempered. That's just who we are. And when you make these intense secondary emotions normalized or just part of who you are, they will be. And then you'll just defend the right to feel that way. And if you do, it's going to, at times throughout your life, impair your ability to think and reason in non life threatening situations, and you are going to behave poorly in that moment. No person who ever committed an act of domestic violence, which is screaming at family members, throwing and breaking things, threatening, doing any of those things, did so without feeling anger.
Right.
People's like, well, anger doesn't make make you do those things. You can choose to do something else. Well, if you can't think and reason when you're in that intense state of anger, your ability to walk away, to not do the wrong thing is lessened. And as it intensifies and could get further into rage and a more intense feeling of that where you feel violent, that's when those things occur. But if you could just manage your fear or worry, your sadness or hurt, or your disgust in a healthy way, it would not intensify to where it gets to annoyance and anger and rage or wrath.
Right. I mean, definitely on this, like, name, I'm pretty sure probably all of us, you and myself included, could name a time that we did something when we were angry that later on, after we've calmed down, it's like, why the hell did I do that? Why was I doing like I remember at certain times as a kid thinking it was like a different me when I was so angry and I'd do,
Mm,
um, well, irrational shit or, you
right.
know, lash out or, things like that. Cause it's like when you're that angry, you just don't feel like yourself. So how great would it be ultimately to, not be that angry again and be able to manage it in a way that's like, I don't need to go there to deal with this situation.
No. And it's you learn to be okay in the moment for a
Right,
while feeling that sadness or hurt and
right,
not needing it to intensify because it's not life threatening. being okay of being worried or afraid without allowing it to intensify.
Right.
Same thing with disgust. Like you're feeling that sense of disgust because you don't understand why somebody else did something that was so negative and horrific. So therefore you're disgusted by it. But now that disgust turning into anger, turning into bitterness, turning into resentment, and those things just impair you in your
Right.
ability to think and reason and behave properly. So how else do we normalize anger? Anger is my middle name, and that's from the movie In and
Inside
Out.
Out.
Inside Out. I said In and Out. In and Out's a hamburger place.
He's hungry. He's thinking of a burger place.
Hunger. I'm hangry. And then, of course, another good one is the movie Troy with Brad Pitt, where he's playing Achilles,
Achilles.
and Achilles was just his younger cousin was just killed by Hector, and now he's livid. He's mad and angry, and going to seek out his revenge because Hector should have known better. Should
Hector.
Hector. That was a great scene. So the world has done its best to normalize anger because most, if not all, people have felt anger at one time or another in their lives. The world has done its best to normalize anger because they don't want to believe that being angry is wrong or unhealthy. And if they are wrong or feeling anger, then they believe they need to feel bad about it or change. Again, when people think they make mistakes, then they got to feel bad about it. They got to feel sorrow again, which is another bullshit line of reasoning that people believe is like, oh, if you don't feel bad about it, you won't change it. Not true.
Right.
We've stressed this a number of times. You can cognitively reflect on things and say, this is not how I want to behave without feeling bad about it. And then
Right.
seeking out answers that does create that interchange within you. So again, it's again about people trying to normalize things because they don't have the answers for those things. And the last one is the world has done its best to normalize anger because it truly does not know how to manage the emotion properly. And again, if you really want to manage anger, as soon as you start feeling annoyed or frustrated, then immediately go, am I hurt and sad? Am I afraid or worried? Or am I feeling disgust in this moment? If you will allow yourself to hurt or feel sad, if you allow yourself to feel afraid and worried, if you allow yourself just to be disgusted in the moment rather than angry in the moment, your ability to think and reason through that will be better. Then once you're at
I,
that primary level, it's what are the things that I'm perceiving that's causing my sadness? What are the things that are perceiving that's causing my fear? What are the things I'm perceiving that are causing my disgust? And then
uh,
you rational and reason those things out.
I was just gonna say, on that point, it's like we've talked a lot about, and we're going to continue talking a lot about how people normalize these intense secondary emotions. But you just saying that right now just kind of cued I don't know, a point. I don't think we're teaching people, the world is teaching people that it's okay to feel the primary emotions that don't feel good, like sadness or fear or, disgust like the world is not teaching people how to feel those things, and it's okay to feel those things and just allow yourself to feel them. It, you know what I mean? Like
You're saying like
it's
people
it
are villainizing when you're hurt, like it's somebody's
I don't know
responsible
if
for
it's
it needs
I
to
don't know if
stop.
it's maybe that. I don't know if it's necessary a villainization thing, but we go anger so quickly and we go to these secondary emotions and then we're told to feel bad about those, but we also, at least from what I've seen, it's a very much like everything you can do to feel pleasure all the time. How are we stimulating ourselves to feel pleasure all the time? And we're not teaching ourselves to be okay feeling fear in like in a moment, or feeling disgust in a moment, or feeling sadness in a moment. We
Yep.
want to escape those, even primary, we want to escape the primary emotion so we can just stay in pleasure. And we went into a little bit in previous teachings about,
People
yes,
escaping to that pleasure to deal
well,
with their sadness or hurt or disgust.
not only that, but I mean, yes, at our core, we are pleasure seeking pleasure seeking species, if you want. Like we're driven towards that. So there's a certain, I guess, biological side of that that's just always going to drive us to seek pleasurable things. But we're not even really teaching. I think we'll get into that a lot more in the emotional management side of things. But just the point you said there about allowing yourself to feel the primary emotion of sadness or the primary emotion of fear and being okay with that. I don't think that's being taught very much. And so that's why we're seeing one of the reasons we see so many escalations into these secondary emotions that lead to the justification, lead to the feeling bad and all of those things.
Well, people use anger to validate that they've been wronged at times. Like, of course I'm angry. What happened was just an injustice. Of
Right,
course I'm angry. They hurt me. They hurt my friend. They scared me. They scared him. Of course I'm angry. And then people feel powerful. People feel invulnerable and invincible at times because that adrenaline and cortisol is rushing through them. It's diminishing their fear. As anger intensifies, fear goes bye bye
right.
because your body's getting ready for flight or fight. When you get into that anger, it's fight or flight. You're either going to run away or you're going to stay and fight. And again, anger feels powerful. Anger feels good at times because people do feel stronger. Your muscles intensify. You are physically stronger when you're angry than when you're not, for sure.
Right. And then another thing I wanted to address is like I know 'cause I had come and asked you about this is there are you'll find in some psychological texts or things out there that will put anger as a primary emotion. And I'll just give the answer you gave me because it's like when have you ever felt anger without feeling fear, disgust, or sadness first? And that's kind of how that's why we didn't put it into the primary emotion category um, in previous slides.
Yeah, and people and some of the experts have put it there because of how quickly it does intensify.
Mm,
And it's their perception of what they think it is and why. They haven't broke it down like what I'm sharing right now, which is anger intensifies from one of those three primary emotions, or from those three primary emotions maybe came annoyance or frustration first, then intensified and went into anger after that.
right.
All right, let's go to the value for anger. So, is feeling anger ever useful? And as I've said in the previous slides or other teachings, intense emotions have value in life threatening situations. So, yes, as with any secondary intense emotion, anger is useful in life threatening situations. So, if you're being threatened, the anger intensification again diminishes, because the cortisol levels and the anger starting and the adrenaline starting to increase, it diminishes fear. So it's keeping you from being immobilized. It's allowing and preparing your body for action, either action to run or fight. So
Right.
again, you're going to either escape, so you can run away, climb up a tree, hide out, or you're going to pick up a weapon, or you're just going to use your fist and you're going to fight and survive. So again, it has value in a life threatening situation. Every other time you've been angry, it's served you poorly. Next slide. Value for anger in wartime situations. So again, being in a life threatening situation, especially something like war where you could die or be injured, can be scary. We're survivors. We're going to do things to attempt to survive. And being angry right before you're going into battle can be useful. Now, at the same time, if you need to really think about how to do your job in the war, and it's not coming easily to you, that anger could impair your ability to do well in the war. But if you're used to swinging the sword, shooting the gun, whatever it is that you do, it can have value there to get rid of and eliminate the fear that could immobilize you. And then I guess if there is a anger value in a non-life threatening situation, it could be physical sports because it intensifies your muscles, it makes you focused, it gives you power.
Shout out to the Star Wars reference.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're in a combat thing, football, MMA, boxing, wrestling, hockey, anything that could be physically demanding. Yeah, anger in those moments, if you're really trained and good at what you do, it can make you stronger, can make you more focused, can improve your ability in that moment. But again, once the moment's over, once the play is over, once the match is over, once it's all done, it has zero value. So people
Right.
like staying angry afterwards, like, oh, that so and so did this to me, and I'm just never going to let that happen again. I'm like, yeah, you will, unless you train and do better. It's not going to have anything to do with your anger.
Right.
Next one, myths and worldly thinking on anger specifically. So we did those worldly thinking on emotions. Now we're going to get specifically on the myths and worldly thinking on anger. Men are angrier than women. Now, testosterone can certainly drive intensity or susceptibility towards anger. Men and women both have testosterone. Most men have more testosterone than most women. We'll leave it at that. But men are not angrier than women. Men just, it's more acceptable by society for a man to be angry than a woman to be angry, because a woman's supposed to be a little sweet and kind thing, especially in Western society. There's certain personas and gender roles and all these other things that have happened in our country and societies that this is a thought. Truth is, men and women can experience anger equally, just displaying it or expressing it very different. Anger management fixes anger issues. So anger management is a program or a group therapy or a group, depending on which one they're doing, to help people fix anger. It doesn't fix the anger issues. It teaches people supposedly how to cope better when they are angry. But it doesn't tell them that it doesn't serve them well in non-life threatening situations. It tells them anger is normal. Everybody's going to feel it. You just have to choose to do the right thing even when you're angry.
Mm.
And some of them will even acknowledge, yes, as anger intensifies, thinking and reasoning goes down. So you got to catch it really, really quick. But
Right.
who really ever catches that anger if they let it escalate from the annoyance or the frustration or the sadness, fear, or disgust? It's most likely not going to happen in that moment. The best way to
It's
deal
very
with it,
difficult once you're there. Once you're there in anger, it's going to be so difficult to just think about, I'm getting angry now.
sure, absolutely. So again, anger management doesn't fix anger. It teaches you to cope with it. And we are not copers of things, we're eliminators of things here. Venting anger is healthy. Again, people think if they go scream it out or punch it out or, go do some physical activity, that doesn't do it. It just channels it towards something.
Right.
Like anytime I feel angry, I just need to channel it towards something. Well, a lot of times people are channeling their anger at breaking things or breaking others or harming themselves or harming others. I've seen people punch their fist into steel and concrete to punish themselves or hit their head into something or do those things to other people. Again, venting anger is not healthy. That's not the solution. It's not going to fix it. Breaking things, oh yeah, there was another thing they told like kids in therapy, oh, punch a pillow. No,
Mm.
we don't teach you to punch the pillow. We don't want you to punch when you're angry, period. We don't want that to
Right.
become a behavior, because pretty soon the pillow becomes a person. So anyways, breaking things lets out anger. And again, like those smash rooms or break rooms that they have now where people can go in and just smash and break things, it's not a good expression for it. Yeah, kind of cool little idea yet
I
for
was
a
just gonna say, it sounds a little fun,
it's
but
a cool idea for marketing, and these people who have like going, ooh, I can make money on junk. I'm gonna go to the junkyard and buy all this junk
right.
and make tons of money on it.
It sounds a little fun to go break stuff up, but the difference in my statement there is it sounds fun just to it's like going out with, you know, an old TV set, something to the shooting range and you just send a couple rounds through it. It's just a fun thing to do, but the idea behind it to channel, again, channeling the anger to deal with your anger because you have no other way to deal with it. And
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
not
to
saying it's
some
not
ex
fun to break things, because,
I
but
guess
don't but
it's
don't do it as the out or the solution to cope with
right.
it.
And that's the difference right there. And I mean, I guess to some extent, I don't know, I'd rather you go to something like that than, harm another individual, but ultimately you're just tearing yourself up inside with all that anger you have anyways. So that's what you need to deal with.
And eventually, it's gonna go boom.
Right.
Smashing lets anger out, which is like, or I'm sorry, screaming lets anger out. Again, they used to have scream therapy. That was a big thing that Steve Jobs was into. He'd go to these scream sessions with therapists, Like that was going to release and just give him this huge release. Like, and believe me, there's a cathartic effect to these things. But again, it's just okay, when I'm angry, I scream. But now you're screaming at people. Now you're screaming
Right.
at your children. Now you're screaming at your spouse. Now you're screaming at coworkers. Screaming is not a good outlet for anger. Next one, repression shows self-control of anger. And again, people think if they can just bottle it up, they can just stuff it down. Don't want to feel that, so I'm just going to repress it and stuff it. Nope, I don't get angry. Nope, you don't control me. Nope, none of that. That's bullshit. You're not fooling anybody. You're turning red in the face. If
Right.
you're turning red, if you're looking like you want to kill me, you're angry, even if you're not expressing it. But there's people again don't want to say nope, nope, nope. You're not. You don't make me angry. I'm like, of course I do, because you allow me to control how you feel. It's something that people do.
Eventually, it blows up.
Of
You can only
course,
repress for so long.
I squeeze that orange long enough. We're gonna see how well you repress your anger. Accepting my anger is as born this way. So again, it's just people think it's part of their genetic makeup. They were either born with it, or it's part of their genetics, or their history, or their family line, or their ethnicity. Not true. So let's talk about freedom from anger. Realize your anger and all emotions escalates from those primary emotions based on your understanding, perception, and judgment of someone or something. So again, it's what you think. It's your perception, it's your judgment, it's your viewpoint that dictates how you're going to feel about someone or something. When you realize this truth, then you stop trying to change the world around you so that you feel better. Because that's a measure in futility. It's a losing effort. You're not going to be able to work everybody so that they can comply so that you can feel better. That's not healthiness. That's emotional and mental slavery, as we've talked about so many times.
Right.
And Patrick and I have both been angry and believed other people were responsible for it.
100%.
Just not that way
It's
anymore.
pissing me off right now, man.
Right. Anger releases cortisol and adrenaline into your brain and body. So, because it releases cortisol, cortisol is a stress hormone, it represses fear. Adrenaline raised in your body causes your entire physical motor functioning of your body to be on alert and being able to fight or run away, the fight or flight response. Anger can fool people into believing they are in control, powerful, or invincible in a moment in time. So, this is why it's easily normalized by a lot of people, because they feel like, I don't take their shit anymore. I don't put up with that stuff anymore. I'm not going to take your crap. And they think that all this anger and all this, pent up, makes them tough or strong or better. And it doesn't. Like when I see people losing their shit with anger, I'm like, there's a weak individual right there. There's an unhealthy individual right there. Nothing strong, nothing confident, nothing well being about that person. Them saying they're not taking somebody's shit doesn't fool me. Because
Right.
if you're really not taking their shit, you wouldn't be saying, I'm not taking their shit. It just wouldn't be there. You would have nothing to say. You'd have peace and contentment. That's the reality.
Right.
But again, people fool themselves into thinking anger has value in non life threatening situations.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Suffering. Learn to focus on the primary emotions that anger escalates from. So if you start to feel annoyed or frustrated, early feelings of feeling that heart start to race, you're starting to feel yourself get worked up, go, all right, hold on, starting to feel that way again. What am I really dealing with here? Am I sad or hurt? Am I afraid or worried? Or am I feeling disgust about someone or something? And then allow yourself to feel one of those three emotions and go, all right, what's going on in my thoughts, my perceptions, and my beliefs that's causing my sadness or hurt, that's causing my fear or worry, that's causing my disgust towards someone? Because
Right.
if you can find the answers for that perception and change the way that you perceive the situation, you can find peace and contentment. You don't need sadness, fear, disgust, or anger or any emotion to validate what you believe to be true. You can sit there and
Right.
say what somebody did is wrong without feeling angry about it, without feeling sad about it, without feeling disgusted about it. You can say they behaved horrifically in that moment and it wasn't healthy, it wasn't okay what they did, without feeling all the intense emotions. And people believe they need those emotions to validate the thought or to validate the state of being or their perception of it or their viewpoint of it. You don't need emotions to support it. Emotions are there to serve, not support.
Right. I think just on that, again, we'll get more into it in the emotion management side of things, but that process that John just described of being able to, once you feel that heart start racing, or whatever it is, you start shaking a little bit or whatever, like you are able to recognize what emotion that's coming from. That's going to take some time to do. If you're starting to do it, you may have to go through a few moments of intense emotion and then look back on the matter later before it starts becoming kind of a quick thing. That's just a little tag of the emotion management side of things, but
Mm,
it
that's an
the way
excellent point.
John describes it there is a as a very quick thing that but you got to remember he's been doing it for what is it, 14 years now, and
Yeah.
it's not, when you're starting out, there's probably going to be moments where you go through the intense emotion and then look back on it and then work your way back.
Yeah. So, just to say it in a different way, what Patrick's suggesting is an excellent, excellent point. I'm glad he brought it up. You're going to get intense emotions because that's normally how you've dealt with things throughout your life. So, you know these new truths about these things we're talking about here, but you go through a moment where things just escalated and got super intense. You acted and behaved poorly, most likely. Now he's saying at some point in the future, you're going to feel calm. How are you going to reflect on that moment where you got angry and behaved poorly? And he's talking about that's the time you can think and reason because now you're not
Right.
angry in the moment anymore. So now with your calm mind, think about, okay, was that driven from sadness and hurt? Was that driven from fear or worry? Was that driven from disgust? And it could be, a day later, the night of, 2 weeks from, month from, whenever you decide to reflect on it, in that calm state of being and going through that thought process that I just described. Patrick saying, you're going to go through it, you're going to make mistakes, shit's going to happen, but now later on, here's how you're going to reflect on it in a healthy way. And then
Right.
look for those solutions then.
Right, and eventually it becomes a quicker and quicker process to where it is in the moment it's happening and you're doing it. But initially, like, yeah, everything John just said.
Yeah, the stuff that he's talking about there is de-escalating your emotions. So when you've popped up into anger, maybe at times you've been angry for days
Right.
over a situation because of how you thought about something. Or maybe now it all of a sudden only becomes hours that you're staying angry. And then eventually hours turn
Sure.
into 1 hour and then eventually minutes. And then eventually it starts to get angry for a second. Then you're like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to focus on my sadness, fear, and disgust. And you catch it right away. So he's talking about how do you de escalate quicker?
Right.
Allow
Exactly.
it because I've been angry for weeks at a time way back in the past where I was just livid and fired up every single day over some injustice that I perceived.
Sure.
Yeah, now I can't even remember the last time I felt angry. You must realize anger serves no value in day to day living. So, unless you're out in combat zone, and if you're here, especially in America, in a healthy and normalized society, I'm going to rephrase it, in a normal society, not even healthy, you're not going to need to feel anger to survive. You must realize that repressing anger or any emotion is unhealthy because if you stuff your emotions down, they fester and they build up. And eventually, you're going to get triggered. And then it's all rushing up, not just for the current moment, but all those moments in the past that you've been repressing it for.
Right.
So you're just setting yourself up like a volcano to just blow. You must realize as your anger intensifies, your ability to think and reason will decline. So, unless a task or a behavior or your action is easy, you're not going to be able to think complexly. You're not going to be able to work something out. You'll be you as we know as emotions intensify, you can do simple tasks perhaps even better. However, if it's something that takes thought or reason, it's gone. It's not going to be valuable to be trying to make choices, decisions, actions, behaviors while you're angry. You must realize that every moment of anger is a moment of stress and comes with all of its consequences. And we've talked about this in the stress video, so we're not going to get into it a lot. But again, excess cortisol over a period of time is killing you.
Hmm.
No different than cigarettes, no different than using drugs or alcohol or anything else that causes secondary aging. Stress is doing that as well. You must realize that people are always doing the best they can in every given moment. And we've talked about this over and over and over about the inevitability and that the determinants that dictate actions, behaviors, choices, and decisions, everything we do is inevitable. Everything somebody else does is inevitable. All we can do is learn new things in the present so that potential future choices, actions, behaviors, and decisions can be healthier or better or different than they once were. You must realize that if you do not learn to manage your emotions in a healthy way, you will be an emotional slave. So, again, if other people or other situations are responsible for how you feel, and that's your belief system, you are a slave mentally and emotionally to those situations or to those peoples. You've subjected yourself to that belief, to that truth. It's not a fact, but that's what you believe is true. So, therefore, it will be. And then finally, continue to learn to be a better version of yourself in all you do. And it seems like we kind of rushed through this one. I don't know if it was me rushing through it or what was going on, or we're just not. But do you have anything else you want to add to it, Patrick, or any other ideas or thoughts that go
Uh,
along with this one?
no, I don't I don't believe we've rushed through it. I think it's just a lot of more bullet point stuff
Sure.
to talk on specifically. That it's a lot of going through the bullet points on this one, I think. So I don't necessarily feel we've rushed through it, but we didn't really have as many examples or
Sure.
things that we go into like we have done with previous ones. And I with the workshop ones, I think it might be more like that because
Yeah.
maybe as they get more popular, we see them come out. We'll have more participation in the live chat and in the comment section about particular questions or
Yeah,
something
I
like
mean,
that.
what would be good is if we can ever get like have some live shows where people call in and talk about moments of anger and situations and experiences or interactions with people that are are ended up with an end result of anger and poor
Sure.
behavior and them wanting to work themselves through these processes that we've talked about
Right.
uniquely and individually from them, because I think those type of conversations definitely will be more useful in the future than just going through bullet point generalizations. It's always better,
Yeah, because it's
like
when
when
you
we
have an
talked about
actual
stuff with.
example.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say when you have an actual example of like, here's how you do this and here's how you do that, it's difficult. I think it's difficult to see like put the bullet points into practice
Mm-hmm.
versus here's the situation. How do the bullet points apply to this situation?
Right. Yeah, that's
So I think
definitely
that's
it.
what's leading to the rushed feeling.
Yeah, I just felt like this one kind of just went really quick compared to the other ones, and we didn't you and I didn't have as much back and forth, but they're pretty self-explanatory, so there wasn't a lot of
Right.
add-on for them like there was some of the other teachings that we've done. But we'll go
Well,
ahead and close this one
and an,
out.
and another thing, just to round it off before you close out here, is like you and I specifically haven't necessarily had moments of feeling anger recently,
Right.
so it's difficult to pull concrete examples of dealing with moments where you may escalate into anger. On a day to day, I don't really need moments where I need to escalate into anger. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely do. It's been like 7, 8, 9 years. So,
Sure.
since those things were prevalent, and even, you know, like 6, 7 years, about 7 years ago was the last time I felt really angry about something. And then the previous like 4 years of that, it was only like five different instances,
Right.
and I was always responsible, always took ownership of those things. But
Yeah,
again,
and personally, me, I can think of one moment in the last 3 to 4 years that I've been truly angry,
Mm,
but it was a moment thing, and it was probably done 2 hours later, and it's like, that was silly. Why was I there? Couldn't have been, and the whole thing. But I think the workshop ones, as we go through the anger and all the different, like what I'm calling the workshop pieces,
right.
might be more like this. And then we'll get into the emotional management side of things, and we'll
Hmm.
probably have more concrete examples of back and forth
Sure.
in
Absolutely.
that area.
So again, hope you all enjoyed this teaching. If you're watching on replay, feel free to leave your comments below. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can get updates. Ring the bell if you want notifications for live premieres and live shows. And definitely, if it's something that's valuable or you know of a loved one who could benefit from these things, go ahead and share it and along and pass it on to them. And if they want to get in touch with us via email, Discord, Zoom, definitely reach out and we'll go ahead and respond to those as and make time for you guys. But we'll see you
Absolutely.
next week when we do our next teaching on anxiety, freedom from anxiety. All right, bye everybody.
See ya. I gotta turn my camera